Hi, everyone. My name is Mihir, and welcome today to the Fantasy Book Critic video podcast. This is a very special episode where we have our first fellow guest, an SPF PhD, joining me in interviewing these two wonderful authors. So, Beth Tabler, Beth, can you please talk a little bit about yourself first before I go on to our lovely guest?
Hello, everybody. My name is Beth Tabler, and I'm the procurement editor for Grimdark magazine, and I am the cat wrangler at Before We Go blog for SPF BO8. Yeah, love to interview.
Yes. And what she wouldn't say is that she's awesome. She and I have been friends for the past couple of years. I've gotten to know her better, and she has been the driving force behind and she's actually the owner as well behind Before We Go blog. She has been the participant judge in SPFPO, and she has been the leading force behind the Before We Go blog's participation in SPFPO for the last two editions. And so today we have two very special authors. They have been favorites for both Beth and me. They have been, well known in the fantasy community because they have written such unique trilogies, epic fantasy, so to speak, but they're very unique. So I'll let them talk a little bit more. So which amongst you two gentlemen would like to go first?
Okay.
Richard, you're up.
I'm Richard Nell. I'm the author of the Ash and Sand trilogy and the God King Chronicles, and hopefully soon a new book called Descending Dragon. And I've been writing full time for 7 years, I guess now. Good God, the time flies. I'm a Canadian author now living in Texas.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Richard. Dyrk, you're up next then, sir.
I am Dyrk Ashton, author of the Paternus trilogy, epic urban fantasy. I gotta do more now because Richard did.
Oh no.
I'm not as awesome as Richard or as Elizabeth or Mihir, but I wrote some books, and I am an American author living in mid-America in Ohio.
America.
Yeah. And my next book will be Kraken Rider Z.
That's going to be awesome. That is going to really be awesome.
I'm so excited.
That's the title for you.
It is. And so the purpose of this episode especially was, to get you both to talk about your series, you talk about your writings, and talk about writing in this day and age as well. You both are, and again, Beth will, I'm sure, will join me in this and say that you have written unique epic fantasy series. They are fantasy, but they take very unique routes. Dyrk, with you have kind of written an urban fantasy, but it's not really an urban fantasy. It's more of like a mythological fantasy set in our world. But then there's historical portions to it. There's mythological portions to it. Richard, you have written what is at least the first book starts off as a low fantasy, but then kicks off into epic fantasy from the second book. Features a cannibalistic savant who is also an incredible warrior, and it's dark as hell. So that's the idea I had behind, because I have never seen you both together on the same podcast as well. I've seen you both give interviews on the same podcast at different times, but I've never seen you both together. So that's why it was so cool for us to kind of have you both as well together. And so I'm now going to do the easy job of shutting up, handing it over to Beth, and then she gets to ask you all the lovely questions while I get to geek out.
I think the first big question for me is, why self-publish? Why did you choose that route? Did you also try to do traditional publishing in the beginning and then swing over to self-publishing, or was it always self-publishing?
Oh, I'm being pointed at. I deserve that, I guess. When I was writing the first book, Paternus, when I started taking notes on it in like 2011, I just wanted to write it because I had found at that time some life changes had given me the time to actually write. So I just wrote. I had the full first book and even like 2 revisions afterward. I didn't even know if I wanted to publish it at all. And I had worked in Los Angeles, long story short. I've worked in the film business for a long time, and I had agents, and I had friends who were professional writers and had agents. And I knew how the process worked. And I I wasn't sure if I wanted to query or not, because I've done that. I wrote screenplays for a long time and had some requested and read, but it's a tough, long process. And then I had some buddies read the first book, and they were like, you should just self-publish this. There's still the stigma, but it's starting to go away. This was end of 2015, early 2016. And I didn't really care about a stigma at that time. I started writing when I was older anyway. So I was like, I wrote the books because I wanted to write books that I wanted to write, that I wanted to read, actually, that I couldn't find really, and wanted to kind of do them the way I wanted to do them. And they said they will want to change it. It will take a really long time. And I was like, okay, I just had my columns, yay and nay, and just ended up doing the self-publishing. And having been a producer on commercials and low budget features and industrial films, and production manager, the actual organization and startup of a new company and dealing with all the different aspects was not that intimidating, including production, dealing with artists and editors and all that kind of stuff. So I had no problem with those things. So I just did it. That's pretty much why I decided to just go self-pub, and I still have no regrets.
Yeah, a few things triggered that, other than I approached it entirely differently because I came from complete ignorance. And so in a way, that was an advantage because I didn't know what I was signing up for. If I'd known in advance, I may never have done it. But no, I didn't query at all. I'm sort of stubborn, and a bit like Dyrk, where I thought I just want to write the kind of stuff that I want to write, and I don't want anyone to tell me that this isn't what they're looking for. I could see that Amazon was a market, and I could see that these tools were available, and I thought, well, why do I need a middleman? No one can stop me. I can just produce the thing, and I can publish it, and I can start making sales. I mean, so I didn't really see, even though I understand a bit better now, let's say, some of the advantages of the traditional market, I just thought, why not start with this, and I'll see where it goes. And then, having to learn all of the rest of the figuring out, an editor and a cover artist and how to
advertising,
advertise,
budgeting.
So it really is starting your own business, which I'd never done. So I had to learn some of that stuff, and I'm still not very good at it, but you have to figure some of it out, because I sort of say this to people, that the best thing to be, I think, maybe this is true not just of self-publishing, but in anything in life, is a great marketer and then a good writer. It's the great writers who are not great marketers, unfortunately, probably
nobody's going to read your book.
No one's going to read your book. So it's a real problem. You have to either figure it out, or you have to find someone who can help you, or you have to, so it is a problem. Maybe 20 years, you might rise to the top, like the quality of the writing and the books that you keep producing, you may get there eventually, no matter what, if you're very good. But the great marketers will get there first.
There are very few exceptions of people who just put their first book out, and suddenly it's like in the top 100 in the store within a few weeks, and they just stay that way. But then they do learn how to market after that to keep it there. But those are the very rare, except the Alec Hudsons and the Will Whites, and who just kind of threw it out there, and just somehow it really, really caught on. But again, you can count those people in one hand.
And Will White had a tremendous hand in Alec Hudson's success as well, because he managed to tweet out or talk to his readers about his Alec's first book. So that was really funny.
Yeah.
So a follow-up to that question, you guys being in the self-published industry, do you see a change in the publishing industry itself? Like, is there a movement away from traditional publishing because of the way that authors can, I don't know, like control how they want their book presented and stuff, more so than ever before? Do you think the market's changing?
I think that there has been a lot of changes on both sides. Even just in the last 6 years that I've been self-publishing, things have changed tremendously in self-pub. As far as it's now much more pay or play. It's much harder to get pushed by Amazon itself. If your books are selling well, then they push it more. It's you have to know a lot more about a lot of other different things. Advertising on Amazon has changed from, if you are relatively decent at it and pick the right keywords and stuff, that you're going to do okay with advertising. It can actually do quite well for you, to with not an outrageous spend, to nobody can figure out how the hell it works anymore from the high end on down. And it costs a fortune.
Yeah.
It's become really, really difficult. And trad publishing has been getting some really bad a bad reputation in a lot of ways recently, and it's just kind of built, and it's really kind of coming to a head this year. People are learning that most trad publishers or trad published authors have side jobs, even if they have 6, 7, 8 books out, even traditionally published. That full-time authors who can afford to just be full-time authors is a very small, very, very small percentage, even if you have a bunch of books out. And plus all the cuts in proofing and editing, they do not have any better quality proofing than the trad pub had a really bad rep for a long time, or sorry, self pub had a really bad rep for a long time for proofing and editing. And trad pub books are just full of it now because they've cut back so much. And they're using, AI images and stock images for covers. They don't, it's become difficult. And a lot of it, I feel bad because I have friends in the trad pub industry as editors, mostly. And a lot of it is just not their fault. The budgets have been cut back so much. And the staffs have been cut back so much. It makes it really hard. So I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing a whole lot of trad pub authors now becoming hybrid. So if they can publish a book a year, trad pub, they'll still do it, but then they'll put out 1 or 2 books a year in self pub as well. You're seeing a lot more of that. You're also seeing, what was impossible 5, 6 years ago, 6 years ago, getting picked up in trad when you had started self-publish had been, you were basically blacklisted, and now it's like they're picking them up all the time. Unfortunately, there are only, of the probably 8 people I know that have done that. I only know 2 that are relatively happy with the situation. But we'll see as they put out more self-pub books how much maybe that has broadened their audience, because it's still can be a beneficial thing. So yeah, things have changed.
Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I just wonder why people with large names would traditionally publish. Like Stephen King. Why would Stephen King traditionally publish?
Because he doesn't need the money. He doesn't care. It's a lot easier for him. He doesn't have to worry about all the stuff that self-pubs have to. Brandon Sanderson is one of the very few exceptions. But the reason he does it is because he can afford to do it. He has a team of 24 people that work for him and do all this stuff. And he can still just basically concentrate on writing and teaching some classes, doing the things that he loves to do. So it's easier for him because he's gone into the Kickstarter and stuff like that trad pubs never would before. And Brian McClellan did it and did really well. though he still doesn't say very nice things about self-pub. I'm not sure why, even though his book did okay. Brian's a great guy. Just his I don't know that the experience was that great for him, but I thought it went quite well. It maybe wasn't what he expected. But yeah, that's
I see the lines blurring, basically.
Yeah.
That it looks to me as if, for readers particularly, they're starting to not know the difference between indie and traditional publishing. And so as long as that is the case, as long as readers are starting to lose the distinction, then the industry will lose the distinction. Because as long as that stigma disappears, where people are not being able to tell the difference or whatever, it'll just slowly blur. So what that looks like, I don't know. I don't know enough about the traditional publishing industry. When you say, why would a Stephen King go traditional? There are still reasons to go traditional. One, they're getting you into the bookstores, right? That you just can't do very easily as a self-published writer. They're helping you with translations, and they're getting you into other markets that way.
Very true.
So they have the ability
is very hard for self-pub.
Yes.
Sure.
So they have the ability to get you into these markets that you can't get into as a self-pub, essentially, otherwise. So they have all these relationships. And if you're Stephen King, they actually do push you, they help advertise, So if you're a high-tier sort of traditional published writer, it's a pretty good deal. They're actually still looking out for you. If you're sort of a mid-tier to a low-tier writer with a traditionally published, they don't care about you. They're not pushing you. You're not getting a cent in advertising from them, but they are still getting you into bookstores, things like that. So there's still some logic to it. I found it interesting when you said, 2 sort of 8 people who are maybe happy. That's interesting to me. I would love to talk to more people who have done this and just to get their experience.
This is a very interesting point, you both brought up, because, like, the one thing which I realized, and I'm pretty sure you have seen this as well, especially just with regards to covers. The covers are getting better and better in self-published than, say, traditionally published is now going more of like just like a not, I don't want to say stock art, but just like like a designed one, which is good in some cases, but not necessarily great. But on the other hand, you have self-published people who are getting these fantastic artworks from like wonderful artists, and that artwork is now looking more and more prettier, so to speak. So in that regards, like self-published is definitely eclipsed traditionally publishing to a certain degree, I would say. Do you all think that's the case?
This is not unique to the publishing business, where because their industry is under threat, let's say, by technology, by whatever you want to call it, the people who are very good, whether you're an editor or a cover artist or whatever, they can go independent, right? They can say, look, I've been an editor or a artist in this industry for 15 years. I have an excellent reputation, whatever, here are my examples of my work. Hire me if you want to, and people will. So the great talent of the industry is sort of slowly bleeding away as they're going independent and they're working with people on their own, whether it's traditionally public. So their contracts are probably sort of changing. They're probably saying to the traditional industry, you got to pay me more to keep me, and they probably can't. And so, it's a death spiral, and it's sad to watch, because there's all kinds of people who are very good people who just want to put out good books, who are working in the traditional publishing industry, but it's just a market forces problem, and we'll see. It's still shaking out, and who knows what it's going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, who knows. But I have questions for readers sometimes where I'm wondering, do you feel like this is the best time to be, let's say, a fantasy writer? Or do you feel like the quality is low and it's hard to find good books? I just don't know the answers to some of that stuff.
I feel like it's a golden time to be a fantasy reader.
Right.
I
certainly have a much wider variety of types of things to find.
I mean, I've been reading fantasy for 35 years plus, and I have access. I have too many books. I am sitting amongst piles of books right now. I have too many books, and they're all great.
Okay, well, if they're all great, then that's the thing. That's sort of the ideal situation. What else could you ask for, really?
Yeah, and to add to Beth's point, the ease of access as well. With the ebooks, like you can download a book right now. Like previously it was not the case, and just from my experience, like because I was in India, to even get the popular books was such a hard thing. Like, you would get like the paperback, maybe you would get hardbacks or no, because they would barely get across the sea. But even paperbacks and paperbacks, sometimes like I would get like book 2 and book 4 and not have books 1 and 3. And I was like, I cannot start this series. So yeah, with the advent of ebooks and of course self-publishing, it's the niche genres that have come up across, ahead as well. Like, you get this epic grimdark, I don't know, grimdark sci-fi, mythological fantasy in Dyrk's case as well. Like, that was so hard. The publishers decided what they wanted to publish, and that was it. You either fit into their schemes or you did not. And amazing books, just not all over the world.
And you look at my Goodreads profile as an avid reader, and I've got mostly 5s and 4s, honestly. And I'm not, I'm a normal critical reader, and just a lot of really great books.
So it's hard to complain.
What Richard said about the market forces, you saw a lot of the same thing happening with filmmaking, because I followed that because I was a filmmaker for so many years. And today it used to be you'd get a wide variety of large to small films from all kinds of different independent to big studio movies that you could go see, and they'd be in the theater for a while. And now it's like it's the same for 3 to 5 kinds of movies all the time. And a lot of that happened with the same thing happening because of digital revolution and cable and independent outlets. A lot of the talent started to bleed because, I mean, what people are able to do with these cable shows now they're becoming bigger budget, more Hollywood controlled. But the things that you would see, the writers and the directors, it used to be that was all second tier, right? And now that's where the creme de la creme of talent is at this point, to be honest. And these directors are going back and forth, right? And some of these writers aren't even interested in doing big features because they're doing so well and doing such amazing stuff with a little more freedom in these cable shows.
Yeah, well, you get to, just like our industry, you get to work with who you want. You don't have to work with anyone you don't want. I mean, you're fully in control, which some people like and some people don't, right? But as I say, usually when you get quite talented people, they're always on the hunt for other talented people. When they encounter someone like that, they think, okay, that's my guy. I want to work with that guy. I don't want to have to deal with, and that's the problem with big corporations. And I've worked for big corporations. You're in the situation where you often you're in terrible circumstances that you have no control over. And so you can just see how it happens, where the talent is the first people to leave the ship because they're the ones who can. And then you're left with sort of a spiraling mixture of mediocrity. And the quality just gets worse and worse. That's just how it works.
One of my favorite parts of the self-published industry, and kind of goes on what you guys are saying, is that I feel like self-published authors can let it all hang out because they don't have to, I mean, they can worry about market trends and stuff, but they don't have to. They can put whatever kind of book out they want, whatever kind of book they feel like writing. And oftentimes they'll find an audience because there are people out there who want to read, super, super grim dark books or mythological fantasy, urban fantasy. I think that's one of the best aspects, which I don't necessarily see in traditionally published, because they have to follow market trends so closely,
Well, in
50 vampire books.
In self-pub, you get both, right? You get the people who are probably a bit more like me, who are not as great at the marketing, who just think, I don't care, I'm going to do whatever I want and let the chips fall where they may. But then you get guys who are just brilliant marketers, who understand the market.
And they write to a market, to a niche.
Yes.
But the thing is that the niches are so huge now that you can make an incredible living going just toward cultivation, Asian style progression fantasy, which all
Funny
falls
you
under
should
kind
say
of a
that,
lit
Dyrk.
RPG, because or harem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and people can make a fortune
The
getting into
the TikTok books.
these little
Absolute fortune.
we would this trad pubs might call them little niches, but when you can make the percentage of profit that you can as a self pub, which you can't come close to in trad pub,
Mhm.
you can sell a lot less books, which can still be a lot of books, and make more money than most trad pub authors, and go full time. You can write super dark, odd fantasy like Richard does, and by odd I mean great. Or you can write first. I mean, I had no idea, because I write present tense for adult fantasy. I head hop, meaning I use an omniscient
Mhm.
viewpoint that moves in and out from sometimes paragraph to paragraph, and a trad pub would never allow that. Never. Only somebody like N.K. Jemisin could get away with writing, second person, right? Nobody gets to do things like that, and people still read it,
Mhm.
right? There are still an audience of people who will read this stuff, and decent size one.
Richard, you're also saying something more.
I've totally lost it.
Oh,
but-
you were saying, speaking of progression fantasy.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's a lot of indie writers, and I'm probably one of them. We're now starting to dabble in some of these. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, why
It's
wouldn't
fun.
you? It's fun, and people love it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so, and they talk about these little niches. I mean, you wouldn't believe how successful some of the guys doing this stuff, that you've never heard of these guys, right?
Yeah.
And none of the big media will ever think about, well, they will in the future, just wait. But right now, they almost don't exist as far as the traditional publishing industry is concerned.
Yeah.
But these guys are crushing it. They're, especially compared to a lot of the mid-tier publishing writers in the main business. So it's, I don't know, it's very interesting. It's the Wild West still.
Yeah.
It's all just shaking out, and it's very exciting for people like me, who I love risk taking, and that's why I'm in this situation that I'm in. So I like to see these weird markets that you can maybe make, write something crazy and make good money, but you also may flop horribly. So that's
there's always that.
Do you guys know C.T. Phipps?
Yeah. Charles. Yeah.
He's one of those niche guys that just he knows exactly what he likes.
He also cranks them out. What does he do?
Whoa.
Publish like 6-7 books a year?
I don't know. And not only
I've read two, and I read 2 of them. They're great.
He writes for Before We Go too.
Yeah.
And he cranks out reviews too.
Yeah.
He's amazing. I don't know.
Super motivated, fast,
Yeah.
talented. And he writes in every genre.
Genre.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, he writes like superhero stories. I know he has his own superhero world. He has written previously. I read like a post-apocalyptic Western series of his, cyberpunk,
sci-fi, full-on sci-fi, horror, vampire.
Yep, and these are all niche. They're all very, very, very niche. So he has his audience as well.
Yeah, which, let me tell you, is not easy to do.
Yeah.
It's moving genres is a thing, many great writers fail to do.
Yeah.
I read his horror novel last year. I loved it. It was so fun.
Yeah.
Didn't take itself seriously. It was great.
And that's I think his style.
Yeah.
It's all very tongue-in-cheek. And I love that.
It sort of reminds me of Buffy the Vampire Slayer or something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Who I think he actually really likes. I think he really likes Buffy.
I'm not surprised to hear that. Yeah.
Is he writing that series United States of Monsters? Or am I thinking of something? Oh, okay, so that's it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's his tagline for the series.
I can't keep track. They come out so fast, and they're all so bizarre.
I can't remember the name of the one I read, but it was about the children of serial killers who have serial killer
Oh.
powers,
Yeah.
and they didn't want to be serial killers.
I remember you telling me about this one.
It
Like
was
and it's
really
all
fun.
it is funny as well. It sounds horrible, but it's funny.
Yeah.
It's written by Charles C.D. Phipps, and yeah.
It's
Really-
it's like all of us, right? We all get these crazy ideas of all these things we want to do, but authors like me, it takes us a year, 2 years to write a book, but he can write them so fast that he's like, oh, he can do all of those ideas. I can't imagine how many he actually has.
He's probably got a stack of post-it notes like
Yeah.
this tall.
Yeah, I suspect Dyrk and I, we have got maybe 20 ideas, and we think, okay, is this worth it? Because it's going to
Okay,
take me
let's
a year
narrow it
to.
down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since you both brought up this point, I want to ask you this. You both technically, I was looking at your past books. You put out like the 3 books in the trilogy. You put out at 2-year intervals. Now that, if you look at from a traditional published perspective, that's normal. That's great for them. Self-published terms, at the start it was okay, but now it's considered slow. So how do you both, and again, I'm not saying slow as a pejorative, because I know that's just your speed.
Sure.
Different writers, different speeds. But how do you both deal with that? The fact that you are putting out your best work, but you're putting it out at your own speed. But then for the normal self-published fantasy reader who's been inundated with these books by different writers and different, maybe 1 to 2 books per year, how do you folks deal with that?
Richard?
I mean, this is a fairly complicated question. And, just as you say, well, it's not a pejorative to say slow. We probably think, well, it's not a pejorative to say you're putting out 6 books a year. But at the same time, there is a difference between books that you can write in 3 months and books that take a year or a year and a half. It's, there's just a difference. It's hard to come up with a comparative example. You might think of a music industry, maybe, writing a pop song versus writing Beethoven's Fifth. I'm not saying what I'm writing is Beethoven's Fifth, but if you create a classical piece of music, the depth of a pop song is just different. You can still make a brilliant pop song. It can still be an excellent piece of music for what it is, but it's still going to be different than a song that is 10 minutes and has 700 instruments. And so I think Dyrk and I both are trying to write books that are more like the classical piece of music. That's what we're trying to do. And it just takes longer. And there are people who want that. There are people who don't. It's probably going to be a deeper, more involved read where you're going to have to learn about more characters and for longer, and you have to pay more attention, or who knows, what exactly, but it's going to be a different read than reading a thriller or a romance novel, or, well, you're typical. There can be still quite deep romance novels and so on. But it is a different thing we're trying to do, I guess, is what I'm saying. And it's not that just because that's what I want to do. I'm probably incapable of producing the books that take 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm
write that fast.
Yes, I just can't do that. And so it's not just that I'm choosing to do this, it's that I have no choice. And there are writers who are much, much better at doing that and producing consistently a book literally every month in some
cases,
self-published. Yeah. I just can't do that. So I have to go with the the epic fantasy, or the deeper, more involved fantasy that takes me a year of thinking and writing, because I just can't do opposite.
Yeah.
Dyrk, how long did the research take for your book? Didn't that take like a year to do?
Well, no, more. Well,
More.
on and off more, but I started taking notes on it in 2011, and I didn't release it until in summer of 2011. I didn't release book 1 until May of 2016.
Yeah.
So it took me, and I was writing almost every day, either writing or researching or outlining, and taking more notes, and every day for that period of time. And I have a PhD, and I like research. I love research, and I love learning new stuff. And I took hundreds of pages of notes, and I have spreadsheets with columns of different things going down through the ages from the beginning of, the planet and the solar system and all the way up. And I took way more notes and wrote way more notes and did way more research than I really had to. But it does, I believe, come through in the subtext and in the background. And I had to calculate my own weird stuff like the Mahayuga and all that kind of those kinds of strange things that took time, and I'm slow at that stuff. I know people that'll write an outline in 3 days for a book, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah,
and then
but
I would stop and re-outline and have to re-outline and maybe research a couple other things and then re-outline a little bit. And luckily, I have gotten faster. I can put more words down per day. Unfortunately, right when I started this book that I'm working on now, a whole lot of life changes happened with the family and everything. So it's been much more of a challenge, and that's much more of the reason that this one is taking so long. But I will have it finished, and it should be released middle of next year.
That's
at this
exciting.
point, barring any other major catastrophe. And then I got COVID. You can still hear it in my voice, and it's been a month. So things, and the whole family got COVID. Everybody here at the house got COVID. So that was crazy. And we went through renovations in the whole house anyway. But and going into a new thing, progression fantasy, I had to learn a lot and read a lot of books. So but it's been really fun. I'm real happy with it so far. So yeah,
well,
it's been hard. And I forgot the question actually at this
it's
point.
okay. I just want to comment that because I've read Paternus, and the depth that you're talking about there. I'm a history geek. I like mythology, but even I am realizing as I'm reading through this book, like, okay, I don't get this. What is it? And it's, there's sort of a mental stimulation there where you're trying to figure out, okay, who's this and what's this referring to? And that you're just never going to get that in a book that somebody wrote in 3 months, unless they're Isaac Newton of fiction, right? And so the difficulty of what, let's say, Dyrk is attempting to do in Paternus is just so much higher. It's sort of like, I sometimes use figure skating, where if somebody's trying to do a quadruple spin, that's just a harder routine than somebody who's doing double spins.
Mm-hmm.
And they may land those double spins beautifully and perfectly, and it might be a perfect routine, but it's not as hard as what Dyrk is trying to do, if that makes any sense. So I just want to recognize that, I guess, and
Thank you.
well, you're welcome. And that's what I'm looking for. The problem is, when if readers are looking for whatever they're looking for is fine with me. I don't care what they enjoy, but we do need to realize, it's important to recognize the artists who are trying to do something like Dyrk is doing. For me, that's a big deal as a piece of art, to look at that and to say, okay, this is different than some formulaic piece of art that took 3 months. It's just different.
Yeah.
I enjoyed looking up all this stuff, reading Dyrk's books. Like, I'd come across something and I'd go read the wiki article on this particular mythological deity, and then I would make connections later on in the book. Oh, that's why he chose this. And I'm a total geek.
Well, that's who it's for.
Beth has probably sold 150 books for me at least over the years.
I'm his unofficial fan club president.
and I'm incredibly honored.
I mean, you guys, as self-published authors, that's actually an incredible boost, right? Like, to have readers like Beth who are like pushing on your books to other readers.
I never would have thought. I mean, it still blows my mind.
But thinking more about Amazon, because that's where, for self-published authors, that's where your main source of income is, be it audio, be it physical, be it ebooks as well, right? Because that's where all that's my assumption. So please correct me if I'm wrong. Like, Barnes and Nobles, Kobo, unfortunately, haven't been up to the mark as compared to Amazon when it comes to selling or being like an incredible source of income. What do you both think about that? Because it's an algorithm, so to speak. The people who run Amazon, they run it via algorithm. Both of you mentioned like a while ago that ads are getting incredibly difficult, that it's harder and harder to kind of get the audience to recognize what your book is or how cool your book is. How do you both what do you both do with that? How do you both deal with that?
I gave up with Amazon. But luckily my trilogy audiobook took off, and I learned how to sell audiobooks on Facebook ads. And that has been just, I'm blown away that last month I had my biggest sales month ever, and it came out in December of 2020, that audiobook, and it's still selling. So that's been saving me. So, but I actually have given up on AMS ads. I don't know what to do with my books on Amazon anymore. Sales are way down. It's still consistent every day, but I have no idea how to boost them again. I've tried using Facebook ads for print books or ebooks and just have zero luck. It's weird. I mean, I can sell audiobooks and I can see a direct relation to rank and sales based on how the Facebook ad is doing, but ebooks, print books, crickets.
Yeah, I mean, it's just extremely difficult is the answer. And everybody is sort of shooting in the dark. It seems like I've had a similar experience with Amazon. I haven't changed what I'm doing much. You're sort of shooting for keywords and you're trying to decide how much and where, but is there a relationship between that and sales? It's always hard to tell. I found Reddit has been a pretty good place to sell books. So it's just everybody's trying to find their own spots to try and sell books, and some people are more successful than others. And if you're smart, you try and take the guys who are good at it and pick their brains every now and then and see what they're doing, but
see what kind of luck. But again, what works for one doesn't work for the other, and it makes no sense. You don't know why. Reddit is fantastic. The rules are very strict. You have to follow a very strict kind of way that you interact. But it can be amazing, and can launch careers, completely launch careers. Evan Winters, one of them, and who's fantastic and got a trad pub deal eventually out of it that he's quite happy with. I can move books with AMS ads, but the amount I have to spend to do it,
the ratio
is not
worth it.
Not worth what I make out of it. I can just shut them all off and make the same amount. So, or more, even a little more. Because, if I have to spend $50, $100, $150 a day, I can't make any money from doing them. Yeah, it will sell more books, but not enough more books to make it be worth it anymore. I used to be able to spend $30 a day back in 2017, late 2016, 2017, especially after book 2 came out, and make $100 a day. Now, if I spend $100 a day, I might make $10.
Oh, wow.
It's so I gave up about 5-6 months ago. I just couldn't find anything that worked.
Another thing I'm thinking about, and this is sort of in terms of to counteract the speed at which I publish books as well, is doing something like a Royal Road. There's these, you can post a chapter at a time, let's say, and then people will use Patreon. And I'm thinking about starting a Patreon at the same time as I'm going to use this Royal Road. And I'm going to put out a book chapter by chapter and try that for 25 chapters or whatever. And then, have special benefits for patrons, and they'll get it earlier, things like that. So I'm going to try that. I've seen some writers who've been successful with that.
That's a real model that some friends of mine are doing right now. And with varying degrees of success. It's really hard. You talk about niche. It's a huge market and you can make a lot of money, but with the Patreon, and then you publish the books on Amazon, and it's a whole thing that can be extremely lucrative. But talk about niche and writing to market. You have to write exactly to market and do not deviate from what they like and what they want. And
I'm already
sometimes what they
screwed.
like and want is just kind of fucked up stuff. And a lot of people just don't want to write that kind of thing. But yeah, that's a completely legit. Best of luck.
No,
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but when you both talk about the Royal Road, you're talking about like a very like younger skewing crowd, right? Like, because if I'm not wrong, Royal Road has a very younger reading population. They want
lit RPG and progressive fantasy are the biggest.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, they only want lit RPG books or lit RPG stories and progression fantasy stories, and of course, with not too many deviations. Like, and both of you are famous for deviating from the tropes of the story, so as to speak. So,
I am going to deviate, and I'll probably be punished horribly for it. But it is sort of in the realm of progressive fantasy or lit RPG.
You never know; it might. But the rate of output that people have to do is just insane. Phil Tucker has been relatively successful. His first one kind of tanked, but he didn't give up and he kept going, and has had some really nice success, but it still hasn't been quite worth it for him.
Did he try what I'm suggesting sort of now?
Yeah, no, he's been doing that for a couple of years now.
Okay, because I read Bastion. I think that's
yes, but that's different. This is another thing.
Oh, okay.
But he still has all this stuff that he'll be able to publish. So he's in good shape. But just the output is really what I wanted to say, is that he's writing 1,500 to 2,500 publishable words every single day as chapters, and then saved a bunch up, and then he was publishing them like one a day, and then slowed down a little bit, and now but is still publishing like it close to that. And it's the to succeed in it almost takes that kind of it. For a while people were putting just one a week in.
That's sort of what I was hoping.
And then on the Patreon they get stuff faster and earlier, so you always want a big cushion of stuff.
Yeah, so I've been building that.
I can't
cushion.
write at that rate. I just
no,
and anything even close to publishable.
No, well, we'll see. What's likely to happen is I've got this cushion built up. I'll run out of cushion, and then I'll be like, "Oh shit, I can't keep producing it that fast." So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, just build up a whole bunch of them before you.
Maybe Richard, what you can do is like, when you run out of cushion, you can say like, now for the rest of the story, you have to jump onto Patreon, and only at a certain tier. So that kind of, and then you can say like, oh, when I hit the next 50 or something like that, some number of Patreon supporters, that's when I release the next chapter. So that
oh my God, YouTube it. It's like
and
what
then
they do
when
with YouTube.
When I run out of chapters, it'll just keep getting worse and worse, and finally I'll end up on OnlyFans. And
just hold in your book. That's
check
all.
back. Let's check back 2 years from now and see if I've actually just become a porn star because this isn't working out.
Hey, you make the transition from Royal Road to OnlyFans. There's a story in that as well. Netflix will be coming after you.
Talk about niche markets.
Yeah.
Well, for research purposes, we will all join up.
and then immediately be disappointed.
Run screaming.
That remains to be seen,
Literally. Literally remain to be seen.
Oh dear.
Well, best of luck with the Royal Road, because I know you both are writing different stuff. I wanted to ask you both about a little bit more. I know this is like a little bit of a hardship, but I still wanted to get a little bit more about the topics because you both kind of have been talking around it. Like, that now, Dyrk, you mentioned Phil Tucker. I'm going to say he's an anomaly. He is truly an
he
anomaly.
is.
He is an
And
anomaly in the sense of what he
he's
writes.
unbelievably brilliant.
Mhm.
He's one of those people that can output an amazing amount
Mhm.
of words, and they're good, and that pisses me off. And they're really good. And and they need that's because he can hold all the names of the characters, all the character arcs, and everything that he knows that he wants to do in his head at the same time.
Mhm.
I forget what I named a character 3 pages ago, and I have to go back. I have to keep lists and all this stuff.
I just call them Dude X when I forget.
Yeah. I do. I'll put brackets. Yeah, that the mom.
The
her
mom.
name. But yeah, he's one of the anomalies who can write very quickly, but write really, really, really great stuff.
Sorry, I'm refreshing myself on his books.
Yep.
Path of Flames. Path
Yep.
of Flames took second place.
Yeah, I know.
SPFK2,
In the
2016.
SPFBO that I was
yeah.
in. Yeah, he beat me. I got third.
And
I-
his was
I
the book
suck
that got
with
pushed.
book names.
That pushed out Senlin. Like that was the
Yeah.
book that he actually, was chosen over Senlin Essence. And of course,
Yeah.
Senlin Essence got its own thing. But yeah, it was a huge success. It's like 5-book series, put out like a trilogy of Grimdark, set in not ancient, but like a pseudo Mesopotamia world.
Yeah.
Then he has Bastion, which is like 350,000 words.
Yeah,
And
and he also in there had 3 progression fantasy books.
yes, or Lit RPG. I think it was Lit RPG or something like that. It was.
And then he did quite well. He didn't publish anything for a while, but did quite well with a pseudonym. Did extremely well on Amazon for a while, and then came in with Bastion, has been doing the thing. We were talking to him. I hope, Phil, I'm not giving away too many things, but he's got 6 to 10 books that have built up. He hasn't published anything in a year because he's been working on this Royal Road thing. 6 to 10 books that he could release next year.
Wow.
And he's like, is that too many? So we've been talking about like that. And I'm like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It is. So the thing is, it's in 3 different series. So it's yeah.
Brandon Sanderson.
He's my hero. I want to be Phil Tucker.
P.L. Stewart's like that.
Yeah.
Do you guys know P.L. Stewart?
I know the name, and I talked to him.
Brilliant writer, and he's got like a backlog. He's got like a 25 book series planned, and he already has, I think, 10 books written, ready to go.
Yeah, that's wild.
What's with these giant series? Finish your stories, people.
Yeah. Well,
they're chonky too.
I personally can't imagine doing it, writing anything that I just couldn't. I don't last that long.
He keeps everything in his head,
so to speak. I just,
I know Richard really hates that as well. Like I know Richard, you have mentioned this in an interview, like that you want this end of story because you get tired of the world and characters, and you're like, this is
just
it.
End it.
Yep.
I like to read them, but I just can't imagine writing one.
I don't even like to read them.
I don't have enough ideas to carry through that many books.
I like it in urban fantasy. I can do it in urban fantasy because each book usually is
they're a lot shorter.
They're shorter, and each book is kind of its own thing taking place.
You can do it with sort of serialized, like Sharp, Richard Sharp or something like that. Like where
Jim Butcher,
exactly.
Yeah, Jim
but
Butcher.
if it's like a actual sort of epic story, it's like beginning, middle, end, and then F off. All right, like just give me the story and then make a new story. You don't have to do this.
So this is the problem I had with Robert Jordan, because I read all of Robert Jordan's books, good and bad, up until book 10. And then sadly, he passed away. And there's this huge space of time. And his books are so overly complicated that I would have to go back to the beginning and start his books over just to have any basis of understanding. And it's just,
Yeah.
nope, I'm not gonna, nope.
Yeah.
They're 1,000 pages a piece.
Yeah.
So
It's
I can
gotta
continue
be-
finishing.
It's got to
I
be
will-
really good to justify, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You better have something really important planned, like a George Martin.
Yeah.
I don't know, even then.
Yeah, I will have to read the last book. I have read all of the Game of Thrones, and I will have to read the last book when he gets that done.
If he gets that
Fingers
done.
crossed.
Yeah,
If there's a
Because
big
I
if.
have to know. I just have to know.
Yeah.
Even though in the last two books there was a lot of just more people wandering and doing things and wandering and doing things that I was like, "Ah." And the whole book where most of my favorite characters weren't even in it. But still, it kept my attention through the whole thing, and I did read them all. Harry Potter. I read all.
Oh, yeah. Harry Potter.
without a problem, even though I wanted to, with the teen angst whining and pining just gets to me after a while. But,
I couldn't do it.
Harry, get off your ass and quit fucking whining and stop not telling Dumbledore stuff. And Dumbledore,
so
stop
teenage.
not telling Harry stuff.
Oh.
But I love them. I love those books.
I couldn't do it. I read the first Harry Potter book and I thought, nope, it's for kids. I can't.
See, I don't have any problem with that. I'll read kids' books all day long.
Yeah. Now I have kids, and I probably would feel differently. I'll probably read them. I'll experience the Harry Potter books for the first time when my kids get old enough.
I mean, they're fun.
Percy
They're
Jackson. Fun. Yeah.
I love Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
Percy Jackson books are really fun.
Great.
Yeah.
And The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel. Those are for a pretty darn young crowd. I love those books. Michael Scott.
So, well, we got off track because I was
Yes.
talking about the anomaly filter.
What was the question?
Yeah. So I was wanting to get because again, Phil's an anomaly. There's very few like him on the traditional and self-published side. But the one thing I've noticed is the Amazon algorithm, it kind of focuses on new releases. It constantly wants because all the authors to put out new releases, newer follow-up books and stuff like that. Considering you both take your own time to write the books to be as perfect as they are, how do you deal with the anxiety of that?
I don't. I mean, one thing that makes me feel good is that my friends who do put out much more faster books than I do, they will come in and they'll say, Dyrk, people are still talking about Paternus, and it came out 6 years ago. People are still talking about it on social media all the time. And nobody is talking about my book, and their book sold 50 times the amount, right? Far more accessible, but nobody is talking about it. And I think that's what has kept me going. And that since, like Richard said, since I just know that I can't write like that, right? I just can't write that fast and write well, even decently. My first drafts are draft zeros, less than zero. I'm a rewriter. I'm not a writer. And they go through and write these things and then edit for 2 days and off to the proofer, and then it's done and it's out because they write really well and really quickly. And I just know that I can't do that. So why worry about something I can't do? I can't bench press 400 pounds, and I never will be able to. So I'm never going to try. I'm not going to worry every day about working out harder so I can bench press 400 pounds. I will never in my life bench press 400 pounds. Very few people do. So
yeah,
I just don't worry about it. There's no.
I think Dyrk is wise, basically. I'm probably not as smart as he is about this, because I always think, well, I have to speed up, and I'm trying to figure out ways to, perfect the process or change how I do it. So there's a piece of that that's good in that it's okay to always try and improve, but there's also a piece of it that a canary can't become an eagle. You just have to accept your own style and your own limitations and strengths and weaknesses and so on. So you just have to play within that. On the other hand, in terms of does it concern me? Do I get anxious about other people producing, 6 books a year? No, I don't. I just don't worry about it. Basically, you can't, if you judge yourself by other people like that in life, just as a general rule, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So there's some fine balance you got to find there where you're trying to improve yourself. And it's good to just take a look at what other people are doing and think, well, if he could do that, maybe I could do that. Or how is he doing that? Or, just at least look at other people's methods and so on.
I'm always interested in how people, sometimes they go to voice recognition and they end up being really good at it. And there is a learning curve, but then they can do a lot more pages a day in the 2 hours they have or 5 hours they have to write. I still work and have a lot of other things. So I get 2 or 3, maybe 4, if I'm really lucky, hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. And that's it. And I still have trouble or recently using Remarkable and handwriting. I know one author has said that he has is writing 100 to 150% more words per day just by handwriting, because it's
for
like
me, that
no
helps.
stress and it doesn't feel as stressful as typing. And he handwrites and then it just converts it to text, and then he'll clean it up a little bit beginning of the next day, and he's doing much better that way. And then that's Luke Shmalenko. I'll just say his name. He writes one of the most successful and original lit RPG writers.
I think
Ascend Online.
ML Spencer went to voice.
The voice. She's doing that, and she said that has helped her unbelievably. Unfortunately, I don't think I could do either one of those things. For one, my brain doesn't work that way. I can't think of the story and the dialogue and say it fast enough out loud, because I have to just get everything down and then fix it later. And I don't know that I would be able to do that with voice recognition. I have tried it a little bit. I didn't give it much effort. I do really like the handwriting thing, and maybe I will give that a try at some point to see if that would help. You would think it would be slower, but they swear. And 3 other people ordered Remarkable as soon as he was talking about that.
Richard, you mentioned you were also writing, you tried the writing part out. Is that making a difference for you?
Yeah, for me, there's a whole bunch of factors. And again, it's just you're trying to figure yourself out. And I don't know if this is typical to artist types, but we tend to be terrible employees. We like to do things how we like to do them, and we're not consistent. And
our bosses are always assholes.
Yes. If you're in the business world, which I was for a number of years, it's always, you're trying to build habits, you're trying to build good habits. Yeah. But I find that especially artist types, we're the biggest habit destroyers in the world. I could have a habit for 5 years. I can break it in 1 day.
Yeah.
So it's a real problem that you're building these good habits, but you're just the type that, I don't know if it's you're resistant to it. Anything that's telling you I have to do X, I'm thinking, no, fuck you. I don't have to do X.
Yeah.
And so that's bad.
Or you get bored of the same routine, so you want to try something different.
Yeah. And so but that's where creativity comes from. Like you're on this knife's edge where you have to be consistent, but also to create. It's like a child. You have to exist without rules, without boundaries. And so it's very difficult. It's these two forces working against each other.
Yeah. It's like a naughty child is what it's like.
Yeah.
Dyrk, I call that the ooh shiny problem.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, the ooh shiny problem.
There is, I am actually pretty good at people talk about, I just had this other idea for this book, so I spent 2 hours writing this out, and maybe I'm going to do this and stop while I'm working on. I don't do that. I'm really good at, I don't have that many ideas. I'm really good at sticking with one project. Obviously, it takes me forever to write one book. But I do understand. For me, I understand the ooh shiny. Ooh, what if I did this? Because I'll do that in the same story. And then I'll go off, and it's almost like writing a completely different story. wondering if I, instead of doing this with the book I'm working on now, I did this, and I'll spend days messing around with that. And then the ultimate conclusion is, nope, that won't work as well anyway. But I always still get some out of that I can incorporate in the story. But yeah, I do have that. Ooh, shiny new idea, but it's within the same story at least.
Yeah, well, and I think with just listening to Dyrk talk about that ability to sort of, okay, I got to focus on this thing. One of the biggest differences I really see, and when I talk to sort of writers who are asking, oh, how did you do this, or how did you publish this? One of the big differences is that ability to just finish what you're writing. You have to finish. You can't, it's not enough to just, I write 1,000 words a day. Like, great. If you do that, that's excellent. That's good practice. That's very important. But if you get halfway through a story, writing 1,000 words a day, and then you put it away and you start a new story and you write 1,000 and you get halfway through, you have to finish, because the process of finishing the story is a huge learning experience. It's facing yourself. It's facing, like, is this now good enough that I'm going to give this to someone and let them read it? You have to go through that process.
Yeah.
So I really
Absolutely.
see that with the difference between a professional and an amateur writer.
Yep. Absolutely.
What are some of the distractions that you guys are dealing with? Because like Beth mentioned, the shiny problem, but that's within your own world or within your writing ideas. But what are some of the other distractions that you both have to deal with, in spite of your routines?
Richard?
Okay. Well, I mean, you go through the same distractions we do in the modern world. You're surrounded by people and social media, and in my case, a wife and children and in-laws, and you've got all the problems that life brings to you. And as I say, there's sort of a, even the way we're talking about this, right? We're saying, how many books can you produce? We're part of a world that's very quantity oriented. How much can you produce? How much can you consume? How much can you take in? And that is sort of, to me, the opposite of artistic quality. Artistic quality comes from not being interrupted. It comes from deep thinking, being locked in a room where you're just pacing around and talking to yourself. It comes from the elimination of distraction, whether that's maybe working with your hands, you're washing dishes, you're out in the yard and something strikes you. Oh shit, here's an idea. So it's a huge, huge problem. And it's one that I don't have a smartphone.
Really?
Yes, I eliminate everything I possibly can from my life that will distract me. I don't want things beeping while I'm in the middle of something. It's protecting your time in the office, saying to your family, like, no, it's 2 to 4 p.m. Don't bother me unless there's blood or the house is burning down or something. So whatever you have to do to control and protect your time, and I recommend this to absolutely everyone. I did this even when I worked in insurance. Control your time. Don't let other people tell you you're available to email, you're available to phone calls. No, you have to say, whatever it is, a couple hours a day, cut that out and say, that's for me, fuck off. You will not interrupt me during that time. And if you can do that, I guarantee you, it's going to be weird for a while. Most people aren't used to that. You're going to start to just cherish that time.
Yeah.
It's going to become an addiction. In the same way that your phone is an addiction, you'll start to love it, and it will. That's where you get your best thinking done. I guarantee it. It's a revolution to a modern person. So that's all I can say.
There are somebody said, protect your writing time to the death. And I try, but the distractions with the situation at the house and having to do everything that needs to be done, a whole day washing and putting up storm windows and things, taking care of a lot of stuff. It's hard. And then the emergency things that come up besides the daily, annual, or weekly or monthly things that have to be taken care of. It is hard, but luckily people understand that I do have to get this done, they do they want me to get it done, and that helps. And I have the utmost respect for like moms, and some of them single moms, who are able to write 15 minutes here and there between interruptions and just sit down and write laptop on the couch while kids are running around, and actually finish books on a regular basis, because they have developed, even if it's not ideal and even if they don't like it, that's the only way, the only choice they have. So they write these books, terrific books, through all of that.
Gwen B. Olson comes to mind.
Yeah, Gwen is one of them for sure. She just
Angela Board.
And
she has 10 children.
Tim Whitecastle has written like majorities of on phones, sitting outside waiting for appointments, and just like my heck is off.
I couldn't do it
forever.
And I'm sort of like you. I'm in this transition period where I went from writing without kids to writing with kids, and
Kay Veloso is another one.
And it's just, it's a huge difference, and you have to adjust. And I've spent the last probably year trying to do that, just adjusting to the new situation.
Yeah.
Did COVID change your guys' writing habits or style? Did it have any effect?
I never leave the house, and I teach. My day job is teaching online, plus some other side online job things that I do. And so it really had no effect positively or negatively on me, other than when I caught it for the first time a month ago. And then I lost a few days, but not that many. I was able to power through.
I keep laughing because I hear this question every now and then, and it seems like every writer I talk to is like, COVID? What COVID?
It's true. It's true. Actually,
we
that's what I expected.
We were well prepared for quarantine in our profession. But as Dyrk says, for me, it was the effect on other people around me.
Yeah.
That is sort of secondary effects to me. And so, and just, I think most writers or artists in general, we're always trying to keep our feelers out to feel the culture and to see what it's doing to people. And so from that perspective, COVID has been quite horrible. Just because I can see what it's done to other people who are not used to quarantining and being isolated. And so it's quite depressing just to experience that in other people. So I think that has affected everybody in a way.
Okay.
Do you all ever plan to write about this stuff? The effects that you're seeing?
I think it all leaks into my work all the time.
100%.
One way or the other, maybe not, usually not on purpose, but
I think we're kind of sponges. That's what anybody who's putting out songs or books or anything like that, you're just kind of soaking in. You're trying to take in input, right? You're trying to fill up the tank, fill up the well, and then you empty the well in the book or the song or whatever it is. And if what's coming into the well is this kind of feeling of desperate isolation or whatever it is that people are feeling, you can't help but let that leak in. I think I'm always trying to, even though I write dark stuff, in a way, I'm trying to produce hope at the end. I'm trying to say, even though it's dark, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You're trying to inspire people, or you're trying to bring something positive to the world. But it can be a bit hard if it's getting darker and darker. It's sort of more on your back to try and to fit it into the fiction and then find the ray of hope at the end.
I think Beth had this question, so I'm just going to pounce on it. I'm sorry, Beth.
Go ahead, please.
What are you both writing currently?
Specifically.
Yes.
I'm much more interested in hearing what he is writing.
Oh, Lord. and I'm much more interested in hearing, we tend to hate our own stuff until it's, maybe even when it is done. I don't know. So I'm reading something in the realm of progression fantasy, but it's a little bit comedy. It's a little bit horror. It's a little bit Western. So the story itself is a guy who's living on the outskirts of empire, living in sort of a I don't know what to call it exactly. I called the town Tristwood because it's a little bit of a joke between Tristram from Diablo. I don't know if you know that the video game Diablo, and Westwood, or from a sort of country western, mining town on the edge of the Wild West.
Is Tris spelled with a Y?
No, it's with an I. I tend to keep my naming very straightforward and simple. Anyways, it's about a guy who has to go down to hell to save his friends. That's essentially the story.
That's a good mythological basis.
Yes. And I was reading Dante's Inferno as I was writing it, and so there's some let's say influence there, and it's a mess of a story in terms of the genre, but it's quite, I haven't really used humor much in my stories before. I've used a little bit, but just kind of random. This has got quite a bit more of it. And here's this sort of humorous horror story where this guy's going down and he's got a talking mace and a baby dragon. And I
love it already.
It's crazy. It's the craziest thing for me, even though it's probably more in some ways mainstream. Like people, it's more of a story that it's probably got a bigger audience, let's put it that way, than some of my stuff in the past. But can I stick the landing? I don't know. I've enjoyed doing it, and it's first person, which is different. I've never done first person before, so it's very different than what I've written in the past. And I'm discovering, sort of like I was saying about C.T. Phipps, there are some writers who can just cross those genre boundaries like nothing. But for me, it's kicked my ass a little bit. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, but it's fun. I love it. It's fun trying new things, and I'm excited to finally get it out and to get it into people's hands. But Mihir has been waiting very patiently.
Yeah,
Hey.
I've been torturing him too.
George R. R. Martin has taught all of us fantasy fans one thing: it's patience. And believe me, you both are doing just fine. Like, he's been keeping us waiting 12 years, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, not a problem at all.
Yeah. And it's funny because I always think I'm close, and then a month passes and I'm closer, maybe.
Dyrk, what about you? What are you writing?
I wanted to say what Richard said. Yeah, we get bored or don't like what we're doing, but I don't think that's the case for either one of us. It's just that we know what we're doing.
Yes.
So that's why we want to hear what other people are doing.
Yes.
Like I'm sitting here like a little kid listening to him describe that. But yeah, I love this Kraken Rider Z is, it's the working title, but it sounds like it's going to end up being the title. It started out as a joke. We were talking about all the things that were popular, and I had been planning on writing this prequel series in Paternus, these shorter urban fantasy books, 4 to 6 books, and I still plan to do that. But I said, okay, the things that are always popular and still remain popular, and all the stuff that's new. So I just listed off this laundry list of Outcast works hard, makes good, Farm Boy, Epic, Progression, Magic, Military, Dragon Rider School. Only because it's me, my main character is going to ride a Kraken, and I'm going to call it Kraken Rider Z. And the next thing I knew, I was on a phone call, and next thing I knew, I was like, I'm going to keep doing my other stuff. And it's like, these guys are like, we really want you to do that. We really want you to try that. And the deal was fantastic. And the people I'm working with is fantastic. And I get to kind of co-write it with David Estes, who's been outrageously successful and is just a wonderful guy. He's acting, and he's admitted this on Reddit and social media, so it's no secret that he's more like a senior editor than a co-author. But we bounce the ideas back and forth, and then I write stuff. And what's great about it is his ideas are fantastic every time. And if I get stuck, I don't have to sit in my own head for a week and think about it. I just bounce it off him, and he says, I'd do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. And it just takes a lot of the pressure off. which has been really nice. It's been a lot of fun. So I mean, that's basically what it is. It takes place in a sort of not quite it's kind of medieval mixed with like 17th century sailing period. It's on a nautical world where the ocean is full of terrors. All the nations are these island nations, but they all have to live off the sea, of course, because they can, do some livestock and farming, but mostly it's fishing and trade. So there are kings and queens and it's kingdoms and stuff like that. And dragons, people can bond with dragons, and they go to these fancy military schools in these different nations. And the dragons are used, of course, in wars and stuff like that. And there are these dragon knights and dragon magicers who protect the ships, because from pirates and from all kinds of just nasty critters that are out there. And bigger ships have more dragon knights and dragons and the others. And in this story, krakens have been a myth for 1,000 years. Nobody's seen one, even if they ever did. But they're in the stories that are told to frighten the children at night. So everybody knows about krakens. And in the story, it begins with my main character is only 7 years old. He's a poor kid who lives on an isolated area of one of these island nations, and he finds a baby kraken hatching after an earthquake, and saves it. So we learn it goes from there, develops from there. Where does a kraken fit in? And a boy who becomes bonded with this kraken. How do they fit in, and do they get to go to the big magic school, or will they be hunted down? And magic military rider school, and those kinds of things. So it's been really, really fun. I'm trying to keep it light, fast, and fun.
Please
there
tell
is some
me
scary stuff.
you say somewhere in there, release the Kraken. Please tell me you.
I almost said it in Paternus.
Oh,
I almost said it in Paternus. There is a kraken. It's a very different kind of kraken. This one is. This one's more of a.
It's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah. Somebody has to say that at some point.
Just on principle.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I just heard? All of you both have, these are both really cool ideas. The one thing, and I apologize for this, what I heard from Richard was baby dragon, and Dyrk, what you said was baby kraken. Like, you have to like focus on these things because they're just so damn cute. Like, the ideas are fantastic, but the baby dragon and baby kraken will be like if there could be two plushy toys, that would be like a cross promotion.
Progression fantasy. This is also a progression fantasy. That's in the kitchen sink laundry.
See, this is why I love self-published, because it's like listening to us trying to describe the genre that we put. It's like it's a horror, fantasy, progression, comedy, Western. Romance. Like it's just great, and I love reading those stories where you just have no idea like what's going to happen, what he's doing. Like, even if you recognize familiar elements that you feel comfortable because you've recognized those, the imagination is freed. It's not in this little box where you know exactly what's going to happen based on the genre that it's in. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's the beauty of self-published.
Yeah.
It's funny. He's like, baby dragon, baby kraken. I'm like, what are they like when they get big?
Yeah.
Like,
or just you wait.
Yeah.
Like babies are okay, but big.
Yeah. It's funny, the line when you're saying release the kraken. I had these moments in this story where one of the characters is very much based on a real Western figure, which I think the movie is Tombstone. It's Doc Holliday.
Yeah, Doc Holliday. Yeah.
Anyway,
I'll be your Huckleberry.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
That's the line.
I love that. I love
that's the line. So there's this scene where he's saying something along the lines of, I'm not your Huckleberry. I take a variation on the line.
Such a classic line.
Yeah. I love that.
Oh, that's such a good movie.
Yeah, I love it.
You both need to write faster. I'm sorry to say this.
I
but you
know,
both-
I know.
I was
Both
gonna, I was
Beth-
gonna say in this collaboration of yours, Dirk. So they found the slowest writer they could, and then they said, "Okay, this guy will
Yeah.
write it."
Yeah. Well, originally I was supposed to deliver this by contract last June. No, a year ago June, right? And now now it'll be delivered to the editor in April. They've been very, very cool about that. And an amazing thing too is that because these guys have been it's Bryce O'Connor with Wraithmarked Creative and David Estes, so the two guys I'm working with, plus the whole Wraithmark team is cool. And I handle the print for their Kickstarters. I'm the printer liaison for their Kickstarters, and they're great friends and just really nice, really cool guys, and really cool people all the way around. And they've just said, we understand, no problem. We see these things that are happening, and but they already sold the rights to Audible
Okay.
for 6 figures.
Wow.
Oh,
based
wow.
on based on 5 chapters. So it's just an amazing thing all the way around, because a chunk of my advances is taken care of, and and the contract does not stipulate a delivery,
Right.
because they knew that these guys knew that there were these things going on and things could happen, and they just did that, and Audible accepted it. So I mean, they've got plenty of product. As long as they get some advance notice of when it will be done, they're okay, because they've got plenty of books. But
As long as they get it
they're
eventually.
excited because these guys have written books that have done so incredibly well, and have and Wraithmarked has other books in their place where they keep books. I'm trying to think of that place where they keep horses, in their stable, where they, good God, and I have horses. They, that they're like, cool, we want it, we'll take it. I'm allowed to say that because the contract is written and signed. So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It is awesome. What's some of these collaborations I see with writers makes me think, God, I want to do that. I want to find somebody to write half my book. Plus you get to bounce ideas off people.
Yeah, on this one, I do really have to write the whole thing.
But,
But that's cool. That's fine with me, and it just works out perfectly for both of us. And David's busy. His Kingfall series is the follow-up to his first hugely successful series, and it's doing amazingly well too. So, and his books are like 300,000 words long. They're insanely long, but he does really good output. He's not one of the super fast writers, but he's fast. He's good at it. So it all works out. It all works okay. I've been incredibly lucky with all the things.
That's funny that you mentioned luck. Like you see so many self-published writers, and many of whom are very talented. And what is the difference between some of their success, some people's success, and other people not making it? I know in my own case, so I've had writers ask me, what did I do? And I'm like, I'm not doing anything differently than you're doing. I have no idea what separates really. So it's very difficult. And you can, once you've seen very talented writers who are not having very much success, you start to realize, Jesus, like, knock on wood, what is the difference between them and me, other than
I've read amazing self-published books that have like 14 reviews on Amazon. They've been out for 5 years.
Yeah,
I'm just like, I don't understand. These books are so freaking good. I mean, I have to. I've said this many times, but I owe, I think, 95% at least. First is me writing the book. Second is of any of this success is the SPFBO, becoming a finalist and getting in a group that really, really liked it and put it forward as a finalist and placing third. I still to this day believe that without that, far, I mean, a tiny fraction of the people that know about Paternus would have ever heard of it or ever had it in front of them.
And hopefully we'll get more Spiffbo like things in the future, because we are still in sort of the beginnings of this. I suspect we will, and they'll be better. The traditional publishing industry has all kinds of ways to get their books out into people's hands. So I think we're going to get more and more of that in the self-published industry. We'll see.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, what is something that people like Mihir and myself can do to help you guys?
You are doing it. I mean, and it's all through SPFBO that I know people like you and people like you, because it's through that you meet these people and then these people and then these people, and then they introduce you to these people, and then they recommend your book to other people. And then it's just like, honestly, people like you and me here are my bread and butter. You guys are just, it's just amazing, and people like Richard talking about reading my book, it's just, that's been since Amazon advertising isn't doing anything for me. And then of course it took some success there. If I would have just dumped the trilogy into Amazon into Audible through ACX with no previous reviews or anything on Goodreads or anything like that, it wouldn't have done what it's done. So yeah, what you guys are doing is just amazing. I'm still blown away.
Yeah, it's weird. I have more relationships, let's say, with bloggers, like with people who are just lovers of fantasy, than I have with writers at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe just because I don't know why that is exactly, other than writers are constantly writing books and maybe they're not as engaged in the marketing side of it. They don't have as much time for that. But I had no idea going into this. I was completely ignorant of the self-published market when I started all of this. I didn't realize how big these communities were.
I didn't either. I had no idea.
I didn't know that there was people like yourselves out there doing all of these reviews and pushing books and starting magazines. Well, I knew there were magazines, but I did not understand the level of the fan, let's call it, because in some ways that's what you guys are, right? You're sort of fans of the industry, and that's why you're involved with it, right? Because you love this stuff. Mm-hmm. And without the people like you who are pushers of books, who are word of mouth is still a giant chunk of how books rise out of the murk and into normal people's hands, because normal people are not delving into the pool of books that are out there. They just don't see it, right? So unless they see it through advertising, which, as Dyrk says, is harder and harder to do because it's more expensive and there's more of them, it's people like you who take the book. And for me, I think it was mostly Esme Weatherwax, who was kind of my first person who really plucked my book out of that obscurity and said, hey, I read this book and it's not shitty. And so then other bloggers would say, oh, well, I trust what she said, I'll take a look. And then it kind of goes from there. But how did I get into Esme's hands? How do you get it? It's that, going from 0 to 1 is just so hard to do.
It is. And people ask a lot, how do you get books reviewed? I'm like, you can go to their websites and submit. You can try to get to know them, follow them, comment on their stuff on social media before you do that. Even will help quite a bit. But again, for me, it was the SPFPO. 10 bloggers knew who I was, some of which I have zero contact with anymore. But the good ones, they talk to others, and then they move to another blog, and of course carry that enthusiasm there. And as far as writers goes, it was going to conferences. I went to a lot of conferences the first few years.
I haven't been to any. So
and I tell you what, Richard, you have to.
Now that I'm in the States.
Yeah, you need to go. Dragon Con, SFWA is a wonderful conference. People are amazing. I met so many writers through bloggers, but also through just going to conferences. And they're like, hey, Richard, come hang out with us. You don't have to worry. You're not going to get, you will want to sneak away for a little alone time on occasion, go to the hotel room. So I always recommend staying very nearby. Yeah, don't worry. If you go, you're not going to get stuck wallflowering in the corner.
Yeah. No, I'm not too worried about that. I just haven't. I'm cheap, and I've lived in Canada, and you got to fly.
It's the only vacation I do.
Yeah,
I mean, those are my vacations, and I really enjoy them. And Worldcon Glasgow 2024.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Highly recommended. And
Yeah,
I really
my
want
aim.
to, if I can, and life circumstances are okay, I want to go to BristolCon next year. But I also always go to Dragon Con in Atlanta.
Okay. I
which
am
is
going
much more
to
of a fan.
tentatively promise to come to Atlanta whenever it is. Is it
That's
next
more
year?
of a
Next
fan
year.
con. But if you're a fan of fantasy and comics and games and all that kind of stuff, it's really fun. The panels are good too. But Worldcon is a pro con. SFWA is a pro con. That doesn't mean there aren't readers there. There are a ton, but there are a lot more like panels and stuff like that. And you get a lot more authors at those.
Right.
Yeah, it's fun.
Richard, I can highly put in a plug for DragonCon. Thanks to Dyrk, I have been lucky enough to just enjoy the fun over there. I went this year.
Yeah,
Super duper fun. So
yeah, and that's your second time.
Yeah, well, yeah, because the first time was only for one day, so it didn't
One
technically
day,
count.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
DragonCon is it, and yes, Glasgow 2024. I'm hoping
Yeah,
that I can.
I'm hoping.
It's like 2 years from now. We can try to with Beth and me, with the family and everything.
Last one. Dublin was the last one I went to, and that was so much fun.
That was 2019, right?
Yeah.
I went to the one in DC.
Yeah.
I did.
I didn't. That was happening in a weird time for me, and I didn't go this year because the dumbasses scheduled it the same weekend as DragonCon.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it was in Chicago, I would have been there in a heartbeat and would have applied for panels again and hopefully gotten them again, because I did a bunch of panels in Dublin.
But that was last year, right? The one which you went to DC in November,
yeah,
December.
and they did it. It's different. It's different weeks every year, but for some reason they thought they either didn't know about DragonCon or didn't care. That crappy little. We can have our Worldcon whenever we want, and of course, another conference that I didn't get to meet Nicholas Eames. Damn it, because he was at Worldcon last year.
Well,
this year.
Fingers crossed for some more meetings in the next 2023, 2024.
We're already pushing him to go to Glasgow. So.
Nice. I think there will be a lot of people who are heading to Glasgow from the UK and the US side. So
well, and I also think that there aren't going to be a lot of people going in 2023 because it's in China.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing difficult.
Seems
travel.
like a mistake. Yeah.
And another with the political climate. I think it will be hugely attended, but it will be all Chinese. They're from what I've heard, they're already reaching out, trying to pay people to come, entice them to come.
So it can be a success.
Authors, so that they can, because I know that I won't be going. I mean, I would love to go to China. Absolutely love to go to China, but I don't think now's the right time.
No, it's
I've always wanted to go to China.
Tricky atmosphere.
Yeah, and such cool people. But I think that will help feed the mass size of Glasgow the following year also.
That's in August, right? I think it's in August of 2024, just if I'm not wrong. Maybe.
It's usually right around somewhere in August, September-ish. It moves around.
I hope it's in August because Scotland, I know, and I've heard only that the rains are horrible. So I hope it's in the summertime.
Oh, it rained a lot in England and because I was in London for a couple of days in England and Dublin. Wear waterproof shoes. Get yourself some Vessies.
Come on, you should be used to that. Here,
No.
As
Well,
long
yeah,
as
I know, but like it's just like
Yeah.
you don't
he's
want to
from
be.
Portland.
Yeah. Beth and I were, I still live in Portland. Beth, you still live in Portland. So yeah, we're used to the Pacific Northwest weather. But just like when you're going on vacation, you don't want to be like having the same atmosphere as you're from the place you're living from. So
Yeah.
that's why. That's my hope. Because I've heard Scotland, it's gray and dreary as much as us in the Pacific Northwest. But just I was hoping because if I go, I'll have to take my family, and it's not gonna be fun with kids in the rain, and
No.
so.
God,
Yeah.
sounds like hell.
I'm just shaking my head. I'm from Canada. If it's not hailing, stop complaining. Rain's great.
Hailing and with spitting down a little bit of rain with the hail.
I have lived in Minnesota, so I can understand that, but I'm still going to complain about the rain. After a while, the free car washes just don't help.
Yeah.
I live in Las Vegas now. Everything is completely different.
Just dry it up.
Wow.
Yeah, desiccated like.
All right. Lastly, before we kind of tie it up, and I just want to thank you both, and of course to Beth for your time and for your participation today. Before we end for today, where can readers find you? Where are you hanging out now that there's like this big Twitter issue going on with writers trying to find out the next cool spot to hang out?
I've got a website, www.richardnell.com. Pretty straightforward. I'm on Twitter, RichNell2, I think. I don't care about these spats people have on, I don't care which billionaire owns my social media platform, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook, Goodreads, Reddit. So I'm around. You can find me.
Yep. Yeah. Same here. I'm not leaving Twitter based on all this stuff. For one thing, I want to, it's already a dumpster fire. It has been for years. Maybe it'll be a different color fire now. I have no idea. But things never change as drastically as everybody. Oh, the world is ending. Ugh,
hey, now it's Elon Musk's dumpster fire, so it's still the same.
So it's I'm not concerned, so I'm not going anywhere. And it's like every election, somebody says, if this person wins, I'm moving to Canada. They don't.
I never saw any Americans.
Now they're like, I'm looking for this other place.
All these Americans,
other place.
They would say we're moving to Canada. I was waiting for them. I had an American flag set out for somebody. Nobody.
She had barbecue ready to go.
Everybody's saying, I'm going to leave. Where should we go? What am I going to do? They won't go.
Richard was so tired of waiting, he just moved to America. He's like, I'm coming down.
I'm going to meet an American, damn it.
Yes.
You don't talk like a Canadian.
I'm from the West. I'm not from the East. If I was from the East, then I would have some version of an accent. We hate them. The Canadians are made up of Westerners and Easterners, and the Westerners hate the Easterners. So I don't speak French. I don't say a boot.
Yeah.
You didn't see, but I spit.
Yeah.
Do people actually say a boot? That's not a.
Yeah, in Ontario.
Boot.
Yeah. And roof, right? Roof.
Yeah. I don't know because I'm in Texas now. Like I can't tell. Like they can tell I'm not from here, obviously, but I'm sure they can't tell what version of Canadian I am. And
you could be from the American Midwest.
Yes. Yeah. And I basically am. That's Saskatchewan is just like that. So
Beth, where can readers find you?
Readers can find me on Twitter at Beth Tabler. Very, very, very imaginative. Before we go blog.com and Grimdark magazine.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank all three of you for your time today on this, time-changing Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning. Who can tell with all the times? But no, thank you so very much. Richard and Dyrk, Beth and I are, as always, excited about your new book. So we'll definitely be looking out for Descending Dragon and Kraken Rider Z, because, of course, besides the Talking Baby and the Talking Kraken, all of it sounds cool because you guys are, again, being the, you're being different with your new series as well. There's comedy, there's horror, there's western for Richard, for Dyrk, there's nautical, there's epic fantasy, there's magic school. It sounds cool in it, but it's not just one thing. It's like the combination of all of those things. And of course, both of you are writing it, so we are definitely going to look forward to that. Thank you so very much again, and I just want to say bye to everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.